It's Friday. I like to have fun on Fridays, so I figured let's do a fun video today and talk about space age technology. Maybe it'll break up some of the monotony and some of the doom and gloom everybody else is out there consuming. Space age technology. I've owned quite a few pieces of space age technology through the years, and I got a couple of items from my collection, my collections, if you will, here, that I'm going to share with you. Now, these first items here of space age technology, some people would argue that I, as a regular dude, just a citizen, shouldn't be allowed to own. Well, I vehemently disagree with those people and think they're idiots. So, with that being said, I'm going to share with you the first piece of space age technology here, and the first thing happens to be a space age rifle. So that should get some of y'all excited. So, are you ready for this? Waiting in suspense. Here it is. This is a space age rifle. You might be confused and thinking that's just an old AR-15, an old AR-15. If anything, that's antiquated technology. Well, this is, by definition, a space age rifle. The space age is technically defined as starting in the 50s. Some people would argue in the 40s, but a lot of people agree that the official start of the space age was when the Soviet Union launched the first official, I guess it would be a satellite, the Sputnik, in, I believe it was October of 1957. So with the 50s being space age and this being 1950s technology, this is a space age rifle. Now, a lot of people might not be aware that the space age of the time, just kind of all the rush to invention, all the excitement, all the new things, the rocket ships, the beginning of the Mercury program, going into the Gemini, and eventually the Apollo programs. Some people might not be aware that the shape and aesthetics of this is actually influenced by the 1950s space age. And you can kind of see it if you're familiar with kind of like the retro motif of a lot of the 1950s kind of aesthetics. You can see that reflected in the AR-15 rifle. Now, the AR-15, of course, was, I'm not an expert on the history of the AR-15, but I believe the actual first AR-15 was invented in 1958 as kind of a, an afterthought to the AR-10, which was invented in 1956, I believe. So the AR-10, of course, was the, the 7.62 by 51 variant, and then they came out with the, I believe it was chambered in 223 at the time. I might be wrong about that, but I'm not here to teach. I'm just here to talk about fun space age technology. So I picked up this, and this is a Colt SP1, just a regular old Colt AR-15. It's a bit on the older side. I'm going to say maybe early 80s, maybe 70s. I'm not quite too sure. It does have the triangular handguard, as you can see, and it is, I guess you would consider that slick side. There's no forward assist. It does have a dust cover, and it is empty, by the way. Hear that smooth action there? So I picked this up a couple of years ago. I got a pretty decent deal on them, and I picked the kind of the nicest one out of the pile, if you will. I don't really shoot this one, although it performs just fine. It needs a new buffer spring, but other than that, it works great. Now, if I do get a wild hair and want to shoot a 20-inch rifle, I did put together, and I think it was 2021, this A2 clone here. So this has got the cold hammer forged FN barrel and a Bushmaster upper, and the rest of it is just kind of hodgepodge. I mean, they're decent quality parts, but I maybe put 600 rounds through this, and it runs really great. It's got a classic M1 Garand cotton sling on it. You can see there. And this is the one I like to shoot. And I do like the way these rifles shoot. I like the way they look, and I do like an actual rifle, a 20-inch rifle. Now, I know people these days, some people get into the quote-unquote retro rifles, if you will, and this is probably more akin to current modern day. This is my Daniel Defense M4A1. This is probably more of what people would consider the modern AR, but I do love those classic rifles. Now, that's all fun and good, right? AR-15s, space age technology. I'm actually going to share you another piece of space age technology here that I've had for 22 years. Are you ready for this? Oh, you might know what it is just from hearing that. Space age technology. This is my Fender Stratocaster. The Fender Stratocaster was launched in 1954. So this would be a space age piece of technology. Now, of course, the Telecaster had already been out a couple of years. I believe it came out in around 51. And the Telecaster was basically a rethinking of a guitar called the Broadcaster that came out in the 1950s. But the Stratocaster, being influenced by the fact that there's a lot of things going into the stratosphere, and again, space age influence, space age aesthetics. So this is my, this is actually a Mexican Strat standard model that was manufactured in 1992, and I bought it brand new that year. I actually traded in a Epiphone Les Paul copy, I guess, if you will. So it had a white pick guard. It looked like the one from Wayne's World, basically, and I didn't like that about it, so I rattle can spray painted that black in like 1999. The Calvin sticker actually was put on the year I bought it. It was an unauthorized, not authorized by Bill Watterson Calvin sticker, because nothing was at the time. But this is my Fender Stratocaster, and again, I've had this since 1992, and it plays great. I've replaced the pickups in it. These are Texas Custom Special pickups. I wired them, soldered them in myself, and it's been dropped. It's cracked there. It's missing this back panel here. I haven't seen that in years, and I also have not seen, excuse me, I got a bad connection here. I also have not seen the whammy bar since the 90s. I never use the whammy bar anyway. So, but it still plays, as you can see here. Whoop. Sounds great. A bit of Strawberry Fields there for you. So the Fender Stratocaster, I will probably never get rid of this guitar. I have, you know, maybe 6 or 7 guitars. None of them are big, high-end, expensive guitars. Obviously, the Mexican model, honestly, back in the day, they were seen as inferior to the American models, but now there's a whole niche market of people that collect these Mexican models. They stopped making them, you know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I think the production run was like 91 to 2017 or something like that for the standard version Mexican Strat. And this is very fitting, being that this is the year of the Strat. This is the 70th anniversary of the Strat coming out. So you might have noticed that I said it came out in 1954. This happens to be 2024. So only fitting that we're honoring this piece of space age technology, honoring it by talking about it in 2024, the year of the Strat. So that, we'll take that out so you can stop having to hear that feedback. But these are just a couple of pieces of space age technology that I wanted to share with you all. Again, this is just kind of a fun video, and maybe you all weren't aware that this was space age technology. You know, we've come pretty far since the 1950s, but in a lot of ways we haven't. You know, of course, computer technology, communications technology, phones, tablets, all of that has advanced greatly since the 1950s. But in many ways, we're still running on basic designs from that era. In many ways, the technology has not progressed. And some might argue that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes, if it works, it works. There's no need to go to the next thing and, you know, overdraw the plumbing or over-engineer something just to have something new. Believe me, I know this as a product developer. Sometimes you don't want to launch products just to launch new products. I'm looking at you, Sig. Anyway, 1950s technology, the AR15 and the Fender Stratocaster. Hope some of y'all enjoyed that. Make good decisions. Don't waste time. Have a great weekend. Shalom.